The time is just gone 9:39 a.m. this morning on News and Views, and it's a time of the day where we bring you the big interview this morning. And the interview this morning, we're speaking with Assistant Professor of Religion at the Uppsala University, Professor Emin Poljarević. We're talking about Israel, and we're talking about a controversial report with regard to the genocide that had unfolded in Bosnia. And an Israeli historian has now been asked to correct this controversial report. The numbers games are actually being played, and to unpack this and also this generally talking about Bosnia and the genocide that had unfolded, we're joined by the Assistant Professor of Religion at Uppsala University, Professor Emin Poljarević. Professor Amin, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome. It is a day of Jummah. Jummah Mubarak to you as well.
Wa alaikum assalam, and to you too.
Yes,
Thank
we
you
do
for having me.
appreciate you taking time out, Alhamdulillah, pulling off on the side of the road, talking to us, and, we appreciate that. We thank you for that. Now, we are talking about the genocide that had unfolded in Bosnia and this controversial report by a Israeli historian with regards to the numbers, and he's been asked to correct the report. But the key issue here for us to understand is whether they are playing the numbers game or whatever through this report. One cannot forget all these years later that the genocide had unfolded with disastrous consequences for the people of Bosnia, Professor Amin.
Yes, I mean, look, the 27 years almost have passed since the genocide in Srebrenica and Potocari in eastern Bosnia, and there is still some reluctance within the international community in regards to the events that unfolded that July in 1995. So look, there is a lot of these issues hang on the political climate within these particular countries, such as Israel, which has some stake in recognizing or not recognizing what is happening abroad. And this controversial report is really something which puts a finger on this type of reluctance, right? Because there is obviously a willingness among political elites, part of political elites within Israel, who want to do that, to recognize the whole thing, while some others are more reluctant for various reasons, I guess.
Yes, and it's amazing that this is coming out of a country like Israel because, we know about the Holocaust and Holocaust denial. But yeah, we're talking about this historian who has now been accused of genocide denial, Professor Amin.
Yes, that's the issue, right? So there is some moral consistency among part of the political elites or political establishment in the country, and for that reason, they're arguing there should be obvious recognition of the genocide because it has been established by the international bodies such as United Nations and International Criminal Court in The Hague. So it shouldn't be no controversy. But then there is another part of these of political elites or even academic elites who said, look, we should count and see how many people have been killed in order to kind of see that there needs to be a threshold of recognizing an event to be a genocide or crime against humanity. So yeah, I mean, and then what's the intention behind that reasoning? That's a different story, I guess.
Yes, and I suppose, we can try and understand what the intention is and we can unpack what that intention is because at the end of the day, when we are playing a numbers game and when we are setting some sort of threshold, it's just basically a case of semantics and it's a type of a game that is actually being played. So, just to unpack some of these issues in a lot more detail, Professor Abin.
Well, look, the, again, it depends who you ask and what is at stake. So if we take the foreign policy of Israel, it's not difficult to see that they are very sensitive to crimes against humanity or some genocide-like events that have happened around the world. But in particular case of Bosnia, that there seems to be a reluctance due to the fact that Israeli government seems to have had this evidence showing and pointing towards that they have had arms deals going on with Serbian part in during the just before the war in 91 and then during the war as well. So there might be a political cost or to be paid, because if this is in the open, or if this is recognized as being uh, a fact on the ground by the International Criminal Court, let's say, right, or some other international bodies who could, point to this fact or these deals that have been done, then you can say by default, Israeli government has been, supporting a side of the conflict which has committed genocide or crimes against humanity. So it's very sensitive, of course.
Well, it is, but clearly, one and must not ignore the fact that Israel has had a relationship and still enjoys a relationship with Serbia. And despite the International Court of Justice and also the International Criminal Court, acknowledging the fact that more than 8,000 Bosnians that were killed at that point in time, and this was an act of genocide. So, when you've got the ICC that is acknowledging that fact, there is definitely more to this, and this again is coming back to this relationship that Israel enjoys with Serbia.
Absolutely. So look, there is no doubt that there has been a genocide, that it's established by all the major international community of justice, let's say, instances of where international justice is being served. So there's no doubt about that. But then there is this within Serbia and within the political establishment of Serbs in Bosnia, so-called Republika Srpska, there is an outright genocide denial or diminishing the fact that has been a genocide, right? So that plays into the role of other countries and geopolitical partners of Serbia and the Serbian part, and how they react towards these events, right? So that's the whole numbers game, and diminishing the fact of mass killings and atrocities committed by the Serbian side is projected towards their partners, who kind of internalize this logic and tries to kind of promote it internationally. So that needs to be taken into account, because I don't think from the outside you cannot really know, if you're not invested in the events, on historical events, what has happened, right? You cannot really get a sense of it, but you have to be kind of informed from the inside, and who you listen to. It depends on how you form your opinion. So even though you have international criminal court telling you something, you are not willing to accept that, because on the Israeli part, I'm talking about now, right? Because you know that the International Criminal Court is also having an issue with what you do with your own minority populations within the country, right? So you have to kind of keep your distance against those international bodies who you perceive as blaming you for something, right? So there is, again, there's this political logic which needs to be unpacked in order to kind of understand the position of the part of the Israeli political elite.
Yes, Professor Amin, I'm just going to put you on hold for a quick minute. We're going to go for an
Yes,
ad break. We'll be back with you in a minute or two.
sure.
Down in Afghanistan, millions of people go daily without food. You can heal Afghanistan. Sponsor towards feeding a family at 1,500 in a month or any amount. Visit africamuslimsagency.co.za or call 011 834 8685. Africa Muslims Agency, inspiring the spirit of giving.
What makes Randery Jewelers the optimum place for your memorable gift? Is it our range of exclusive, high-end, luxurious jewellery? Or is it our master craftsmanship of all your bespoke jewellery needs? We believe it's because at Randery Jewelers, we know just how to make your special moments last forever. Whether it's for a wedding, anniversary, or just a simple gift to show your love, trust Randery Jewelers to make it special. www.randeryjewelers.com. Make your moments last forever with Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Approximately 785 million people in this world do not have access to safe, clean water. In developing countries, around 80% of all illnesses are due to contaminated water and poor sanitation. Don't let dirty water end a life. Build a water well. In Bangladesh, Malawi, Nepal, Zimbabwe, or here at home in South Africa, donate to Penny Appeal's Thirst Relief Project. to bring safe, clean water to communities around the world. www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
Little bare feet on the icy wet ground, a shiver at his lips, mud on his clothes. When he is cold, the hunger is worse, the nights are longer, and the pain is more severe. What if this was your child? The Al-Imdad Foundation's Global Winter Appeal allows you to make a difference for refugees, IDPs, and struggling communities in 21 countries globally. Sponsor a winter pack today for just 600 Rand. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
The time is just gone 9 minutes to 10 a.m. as we head towards closure this morning. And our big interview this morning is with Assistant Professor of Religion at the Uppsala University, Professor Emin Poljarević. We're talking about Israel and we're talking about denial. We're talking about genocide denial. Professor Emin, just to continue, and, with genocide denial that has been gaining momentum now 25, 26 years later, we're still discussing this and people denying this. And it is clear that in Bosnia itself, in terms of outlawing denial of genocide, and this is where the Bosnia has had to actually take this drastic step in terms of even introducing a criminal code with regards to genocide denial, and to the extent, because this obviously is gaining momentum, and as long as people do not accept that this genocide had taken place, unfortunately, one needs to go drastic to make sure that, at the end of the day, what has happened, people must recognize it was a terrible thing. It was a genocide that had unfolded, and it has impacted an entire nation.
That's right. And there is no question about the genocide. Again, as we said before, due to the fact that the International Criminal Court and all other main international bodies have recognized it as such, the issue here about legalizing or outlawing the genocide denial is one step in the right direction, I guess. But I don't think this is a legal or political question in the end. It's essentially a moral question, right? So you have to have a population or a willingness among the populations and its leaders who are willing to accept what has happened as an atrocity, as genocide, as a criminal act or crime against humanity. And that moral question is far more trickier to kind of implement, because even though we have almost a generation that has come now, a new generation that has come in the post-genocide age in Bosnia, you still have this propaganda and this type of ideas spreading and being accepted by this new generation. And that's a much deeper question. I mean, you in South Africa have had a huge process of reconciliation, right? But to have a reconciliation, you have to have recognition. And if you don't have recognition, you really cannot move forward as a people or as a communities that are willing to live side by side. So it's a much deeper question than just question of law and political preferences.
Well, it certainly is a deeper question because, the risk, the high risk and the danger of polarization was in Bosnia. And as you mentioned, we're talking about young people in the post-genocide era and believing what they are seeing, believing what they are reading. And this places the country at huge risk in terms of polarization.
Yes, indeed. And we see that Bosnia at the moment, not only Bosnia, but the surrounding countries as well, are in a critical moment where you have tensions rising to the level of we have not seen since the war, right? So the risk of conflict, it's really hanging over the country and its communities, and that's due to the fact that first of all, that there was an unjust peace that was implemented in Bosnia. I mean, the splitting of it, de facto splitting of Bosnia into several entities has caused dissatisfaction among all sides. And continuing on that is the fact that there has not been a political willingness to deal with the deeper issues and not only just maintaining this fragile peace. And that's why I said this needs to go beyond the treaties and legal issues, but it needs to be dealt on a civil society level, let's say, in intercommunal communication, and that has not happened. So that's why, unfortunately, I don't see a way out of the current crisis, and genocide denial is just one aspect of this type of unsettling nature of Bosnian politics and intercommunal relationships.
Yes, certainly. And also, Professor, this also begs another question in terms of the agenda behind this report. And, was there a deliberate move on the part of the Israeli historian in this report with regard to genocide denial? Was this done on purpose so that, this polarization, so that the differences between the people in Bosnia continue to remain? Because at the end of the day, when one sees a report and then years later offering to correct that report, tells me what was the agenda in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. It's difficult to know the intentions behind writing of the report, or just to understand the logic of a person or persons writing it, right? But it's just it goes to say that people are not clear in understanding the nature of what has happened. That's what I said before. The persons who have written it must have had an access to people who, let's say, call it on the Serbian side, both in Serbia and in the Serbian part of Bosnia, where they have been kind of informed and convinced or talked into to accept a particular logic of denial, right? Because they say, yeah, well, look, the standard answer by the Serbian elites in Bosnia in regards to the genocide in Srebrenica would be that, well, this is not a genocide because it was not premeditated. It's just a response to violence that has happened before that. So this response was, yes, it was criminal. It was, it was not right, but it essentially is not a genocide. So you have that type of logic, right, that has been played out. And I think the people who have written this report have also been affected by that story. So in the end, it's really a matter of perspective, which is so cynical and it's so immoral, but in the question of what has happened in Bosnia. So I just really lack words to kind of express the frustration over that. Unfortunately,
Yes.
cynicism, yeah.
And just finally, Professor, just trying to understand how is this likely to impact and the reluctance to accept that this was a genocide, looking at the neighboring countries, looking at Europe in general.
Well, in Europe, there is a general acceptance of the fact that this was a genocide because of the criminal court decision, and also other international bodies, and even the European High Court, which recognized this, right? So the question of denial or non-denial within the European Union context is not an issue, right? It's more of an issue in Serbia and Serbs within Bosnia. And I don't know. Apologies. And outside of European, which is a broader geopolitical issue, right? So that would be my kind of take on it.
Well, Professor, I mean, we thank you. We say shukran to you for your time with us. We do appreciate you taking time out this morning talking to us here on Salam Media to unpack what you have unpacked with us in the last 20 minutes or so. We wish you all the best. We wish you safety as well. and please take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair. All the best.
Professor Emin Poljarević joining us this morning, and a very, very interesting discussion. This was our big interview this morning, and on the question of genocide denial on the part of Israel. And again, one would question the motives, one would question the intention and the agenda behind this report that was came out in the first place, and then later on agreeing to correct the report. And this obviously has created confusion, but more importantly, at the end of the day, this has been universally, it's been acknowledged that what had unfolded in Bosnia over 27 years ago was in fact a genocide. And with that, I'm going to be leaving you on this day of Jummah, inshallah. Once again, wishing you the best on this day of Jummah. Continue making dua, continue reciting abundant durood on Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Don't forget Surah Kahf on this day. We wish you a blessed, a wonderful Jummah, a great weekend, inshallah, to you, your loved ones, and your families. We wish you safety, good health as well, inshallah. And from that, from myself and the rest of the team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.